Okay, let's unpack this. If you play table tennis at, any competitive level, club, league, weekend tournament, whatever,
Yeah.
you know that feeling of absolute dread when your opponent hits you with a truly vicious short serve.
Oh yeah, we're talking heavy backspin.
Heavy backspin.
It's the shot that's basically designed to expose your passive side. And this isn't just a regular backspin.
No.
This is the kind of spin that makes the ball sort of hang there looking harmlessly low. But the second it touches your paddle,
It's over.
the rotation just takes over, the ball drops dead, or even worse, it actually rolls backward onto your side of the net.
It's the ultimate table tennis terror,
Yeah.
right? Because it forces players, especially at the club level, into a passive push. And that immediately hands the opponent the initiative.
Exactly.
But today we're going to do a deep dive into some world-class technique. We're pulling insights specifically from a major analysis of top player Fang Bo. And he showed exactly how to turn this defensive nightmare into an attacking weapon using the backhand flick.
And our mission today is really to cut through all the conventional wisdom. We need to explain why almost everyone's first instinct, which is to just lift the ball with muscle
Falls
fails.
miserably.
It fails miserably. Then we're going to reveal the one sort of non-intuitive key factor that lets a pro successfully flick that heavy ball over the net.
And it is a complete paradigm shift, you have to understand.
It really is. It's all about speed, not sheer power.
We're going to take you from just surrendering the point with a weak push to hopefully scoring an aggressive winner. But to really appreciate the genius of Fang Bo's solution, you have to understand the scale of the problem.
Exactly. The source material we looked at is just full of vivid examples of how brutal the spin really is. Fang Bo himself demonstrated this heavy backspin serve that he openly described as having horrible crushing spin.
Right.
And you see it immediately. If you try to hit that ball normally, the sheer rotation and the low trajectory mean the ball just drops straight under the net.
And what the demonstration showed, which I found fascinating, is that even if you realize what's happening and you try to compensate by hitting it up high,
Which is what everyone tries to do.
of course, it's the logical thing to do,
Yeah.
but it still fails. The professional in the video tried over and over to lift the ball with a strong upward movement, and it couldn't clear the tape.
And that really emphasizes that simply trying to lift is not the right mechanical approach here, not against this level of spin.
Not at all.
And this is where the physics just gets painful. When a player fails to counter that spin, the source shows the result is, well, it's complete humiliation.
It is.
The ball either rolls back toward the original serving spot, or it just dies and lands under the table entirely.
That visual of the ball rolling back, it confirms that the backspin is just dominating the exchange. It's literally pulling the ball backward and down.
And that failure point reveals why the common efforts we see at the club level always miss the mark.
The instinct to use muscle.
The instinct to use sheer muscle and brute force, yeah. But the expert commentary explicitly states, sheer force alone is not enough. You're just fighting physics.
You're fighting a losing battle.
You are. And like we said, just trying an upward movement without enough acceleration will still fail against this kind of serve.
Yeah.
If you try to just lift it, you're often just rubbing the top of the ball and kind of pushing it deeper into its own backspin cycle.
Which just forces it down even more.
Right.
So if force is wrong and just lifting up is wrong, what is the secret? And this brings us to Fang Bo's central game-changing revelation. It can be summarized so simply. Speed neutralizes spin.
Speed neutralizes spin.
This is the breakthrough for every player who has relied on muscle memory and brute strength.
This is the core insight. This changes everything for the player who wants to develop an aggressive, attacking backhand return. The secret to being able to flick that ball is knowing how to generate rapid, instantaneous acceleration. But, and here's the crucial distinction, we're talking about speed versus power. And the backhand technique is completely different from what you would do on your forehand.
Okay, that's fascinating. So, a world-class player has two fundamentally different strategies for neutralizing the same heavy spin, just depending on which side of the body they're using.
That's right.
Tell us about that forehand difference.
Certainly. So when you're playing a forehand loop, your power side, players often rely on hitting power to counteract the spin. They're using their whole body, their arm, everything to drive through the ball.
Right, a full body rotation.
The sources even note that pros aim to hit straight through the rubber surface. They're essentially ending the opponent's backspin and replacing it entirely with their own heavy topspin.
So on the forehand, it's brute power, momentum, body weight. You're just overpowering the rotation and changing the spin completely.
Precisely. That is a power-based solution. It requires space and a full swing. But for the short backhand flick against heavy backspin, you don't have that space. You don't have the time to generate that kind of power.
No, it's a tiny motion.
Right, and relying on that same mindset is just insufficient. The focus has to shift completely to generating instantaneous high speed.
Okay, wait, hold on. You're telling me the motion for a short, delicate backhand flick has to generate a speed that's faster than a full-body, power-driven forehand loop. That sounds mechanically impossible.
It does sound impossible, but that is exactly what the source material emphasizes. To neutralize the rotation of that heavy backspin, the professional has to generate a flick speed that's actually described as being faster than their forehand loop.
But why though?
Because the backhand flick is purely an acceleration game, not a power game.
Okay, let's unpack that speed difference then. When we talk about power, we mean mass time acceleration. When we talk about speed here, what exactly are we trying to maximize?
We're maximizing the rate of acceleration over a very, very short distance. Think of it like this. The difference between pushing a heavy box versus cracking a whip. When you crack a whip, the movement starts small, but the speed generated right at the tip is explosive. It's instantaneous. The power of the forehand is like pushing that heavy box. It's sustained force over a greater distance.
But the speed for the backhand flick is that whip crack.
It's that instantaneous whip crack acceleration, yes.
That analogy makes perfect sense. You need that sudden burst of speed to just glide over the top of the heavy backspin before it has a chance to grab your rubber.
Exactly, and the source really drives this point home by showing what happens when you miss it. If the flick isn't fast enough, even if the player uses some force, the ball it doesn't fly up.
Yep.
The energy transfer is described as being not synchronized, and the ball ends up sticking to the paddle, which causes it to drop straight into the net.
Sticking to the paddle. That's a fantastic description of that feeling. It's a failure of velocity, not a failure of strength.
Insufficient speed means the paddle stays in contact with the ball for too long, and that allows the opponent's extreme backspin to just dominate the whole exchange.
Okay, so we need speed. We need to accelerate suddenly. Now, let's get into the mechanics. If we're not using an upward scooping motion, what direction should that acceleration be taking?
This is the second major paradigm shift. The professional clarifies this explicitly in the training analysis. He says, I don't hit up, I accelerate forward and flick the ball.
Wow.
The entire focus shifts away from the vertical plane.
Wait a minute. If you accelerate forward, how do you lift the ball over the net? We are constantly told, as club players, to counter backspin, you have to lift. You have to open the paddle face and lift.
And this is where we get into a little bit of physics. The speed of that forward motion, when it's executed correctly, is what creates the lift. When you use that explosive, sharp forward acceleration, the contact puts a sudden high rate of topspin on the ball. And that topspin is what generates the lift you need. It's the Magnus effect to clear the net.
So you're using horizontal acceleration to generate vertical lift.
Exactly. And at the same time, you're neutralizing the opponent's heavy backspin.
That is the genius of this technique. You're driving the ball through the layer of backspin, not trying to dig into it.
Precisely. But this forward acceleration requires extremely delicate, or what the sources call thin contact.
Okay, tell me more about this thinness. It sounds like an art form.
It really is. It requires thinness when touching the ball. This ultra-thin, almost glancing contact, when you combine it with that extreme speed, is what performed the magic act of lifting the ball just enough. You can't dig in and try to grab the ball.
Right.
And the source provides a critical warning here.
Yeah.
Players should avoid hitting this heavily spinning ball with the center of the paddle.
And what happens if you do hit the center?
If you hit the center, the source warns the ball will stick to the paddle, the spin will just overwhelm the shot, and you get that dreaded net crash.
Because the center provides maximum dwell time.
Exactly. Maximum dwell time, which lets the opponent's backspin take full control. You want the opposite. You want minimum surface area contact with maximum speed.
Which brings us to a really counterintuitive solution that Fang Bo highlights.
Yeah.
Using the very tip of the paddle. For most amateur players, hitting the tip feels like a mistake. It feels like a mishit.
It feels wrong, but mechanically, it's brilliant. You're leveraging the physics of a lever. Think about using a hammer. If you want maximum speed and impact, you hold the handle near the end, right?
Right, to maximize the distance from your wrist.
You're maximizing the distance between your wrist joint and the point of contact. The tip is the end of that lever.
Ah, I see.
Using the tip of the paddle lets the player generate significantly faster angular acceleration for the same amount of wrist movement. It's just mechanically more efficient and therefore more effective against the extreme backspin.
So what's the specific advice?
The advice in the analysis is to hold the paddle, holding lower down to enhance this leverage effect, and then you specifically aim for that tip contact. but the motion stays the same. You're flicking straight forward, flicking deep.
So the combination of the fastest part of the paddle, the tip, and that sharp forward acceleration is the recipe for success. It sounds like this demands incredible precision, but also full commitment.
It absolutely does. And the commitment is so critical that the professional gives a serious safety warning.
Yeah.
He says insufficient acceleration is dangerous and can lead to wrist pain.
That makes sense.
If you try to muscle the shot, if you use force instead of speed, you're putting all this undue, non-functional strain on your joints, particularly the wrist.
That is crucial advice for anyone listening who wants to integrate this into their game. If you feel pressure on your wrist, it means you're substituting power for speed.
And that's both ineffective and it's physically risky. You have to commit to that instantaneous acceleration.
The margin for error sounds razor thin.
It is, but the reward is immense. You take away your opponent's best weapon, that heavy backspin short serve, and you turn it into your immediate scoring opportunity. Or at the very least, a powerful topspin rally starter.
That's a perfect encapsulation. This isn't about lifting a heavy box, it's about flicking a small pebble with the instantaneous speed of a whip crack. So what does this all mean for you, the learner, prepping for your next match or just trying to drill this in practice? Let's quickly summarize the 3 absolutely critical non-negotiable takeaways here.
Okay.
If you want to master the backhand flick against that horrifying heavy backspin.
First, you have to internalize that speed is the absolute key. Forget force. This is a speed contest. You need that instantaneous acceleration.
Second, your focus must be on quick, sharp acceleration forward across the net, not simply hitting up. You are leveraging the high topspin generated by speed to create your lift.
And third, you must use thin contact and target the tip of the paddle. Use the lever principle to your advantage. Avoid the center of the paddle because that's what traps the spin and causes the ball to die.
Master those 3 principles, and that short, heavy backspin serve stops being an anchor weighing down your offense, and it starts being a launch pad for your attack.
And finally, a provocative thought for you to chew on. Fang Bo's analysis also noted that some of these extreme serves include horizontal or side spin as well. We've established that speed neutralizes vertical backspin. But if you connect this to the bigger picture, think about the role of angle, that rapid, committed forward motion encountering that truly insidious combination of side and backspin at the same time. The technique is transferable, but your angles of attack have to adapt to deal with that lateral movement. That commitment to sharp forward acceleration is often the key to countering that side-to-side movement as well. That is your next layer of challenge.